Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, and what a montage that was. That certainly brought back the memories, didn't it? So, to say I'm thrilled about our next guest would be an understatement, and I could tell by the number of people in here as well that this is really exciting. I never thought when I was watching CBC so many years ago that I would be here introducing these folks to the stage. So let's give them a very, very warm Hal-Con welcome. First up is Pat. Right over here. There we go. And there's a microphone right there for you. Next is Stefan. And please welcome Christian. Kristen, sorry. I said your name wrong. I apologize.
Oh, there she is. Yay!
There we go. Sorry. You tricked me. Crafty. And then finally, Stacy. So, welcome to the stage. It's great to have you at Hal-Con.
Thank you for coming, by the way. This is very nice.
And your microphones are right there. Thanks. So, what do you think of Halifax so far?
Love it. We've been eating and having
Best food.
fun and drinking and partying. It's been fantastic.
Pat and I were here probably about 10 years ago. We were speaking at a university, and my fondest memory is that we went to, we saw a movie, went to see Team America. And then right afterwards, Pat's like, there's this place called the Liquor Dome. We gotta go.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. I hear it's awesome. I think I was just terrible. We were just terrified. We were like,
Yeah, we were scared. A couple of old creepy dudes walking into the Liquor Dome.
You wouldn't be the only old creepy dudes in the Liquor Dome. I think there's a special season pass.
There's
for
a room called the Creepy Room. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to the creepy room. No champagne in the creepy room. Okay. So, what we'll do is we'll have an opportunity for you to ask some questions and things like that, but I'm Fat Apollo, so I get to go first, so I'm going to ask my question. So, Stefan, you hold a very distinct designation in TV history in Canada. Do you want to tell folks what it is?
Oh, okay, is it because I said the F word?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I said the F word. On Degrassi, it was the series finale after Degrassi Junior High, Degrassi High. There was a special called School's Out, which was a fairly massive thing at the time where we sort of wrap up the show. In case you don't know, Joey has been spending his summer dating Caitlin and effing Tessa Campanelli. And that's practically what I say on stage, or on the show, except we actually said the F word. And it was right after that, Stacy then goes, "You were effing Tessa Campanelli?" And it's kind of awesome.
Tessa Campanelli. You were
So-
effing Tessa Campanelli.
Either you did or you didn't.
There was more.
How many of you guys were watching Schools Out with your parents at the time when the F-bomb got...
Sorry.
Yeah, it was after 9 o'clock, and we did do alternatives where it was like screwing or bopping or whatever, like they wanted to
Broomhead.
Are you
And,
bopping her? Are
So
you
I think we were really
bopping
all
her?
shocked. We were shocked that they actually did use that version, but it was kind of, our audience had grown up with us over the past 5 years. They were going into university. I think they figured our audience could take it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well,
it was
The
kind of
whole
cool.
subject matter of the movie was so much heavier it was scheduled at a
depressing.
later time. And I'm sure there was like a disclaimer at the beginning of it. I hope there was, because it was definitely a bit of a downer of a movie.
Warning, this is a downer.
What were you were saying when we were talking last night, you were talking about it being shown in Houston, was it? You were telling me about the...
Yeah, about 10 years ago, Stefan and I were invited out to Austin, Texas. They have a really cool theater there that, what was that theater called? Do you remember?
Alamo Draft House.
Alamo.
Yeah,
And, you can go there and grab a beer, or grab something to eat.
Yeah, it's like each second row was taken out so that you could have a meal, like you have a steak dinner, drink beer, and watch a movie. It's the coolest thing ever.
And they had a 12-hour Degrassi marathon at this theater, like kind of like the greatest hits with a midnight showing of Schools Out. Now, Americans, the show aired on PBS, and they never aired Schools Out in the States. So the series for them ended at the last episode of Degrassi High. So here we are 10 years later, these Americans were like, there is an effing movie?
Yeah.
And so they played it, and we sat down in the audience.
They lost their shit. It was like, they had no idea. And so when they're like, honestly, they were like kind of surprised. The Alamo put out and said, we're going to show this Degrassi movie. They're like, what? And they were drunk. And they were spellbound. It was amazing. And they were so pissed at Pat because we came out afterwards. The guys were just like, "You're an asshole. You're just an asshole."
Oh my
But it was a
God.
great experience.
Yeah, that sounds so cool because we all grew up with Degrassi and all that stuff like that. So the idea that they had no idea there was this final movie, it's like, what? There was a third Star Wars? What?
Totally.
What? I thought Han was stuck in the carbonite forever.
There are several episodes of Degrassi that never made it to the States when we were from like junior high all the way through Next Gen that were just considered too risky for them to air. I think they finally found it to air years later, but we're very lucky that we're fairly open-minded here in Canada to be able to tell those stories.
Well, and this is where I have to make a confession, is that up until this year, and this is true, I thought it was Degrassi.
Degrassi?
Degrassi. And I kept calling it Degrassi. And someone says to me, they go, it's not delivery, it's Degrassi. And I'm like, isn't that the way it's said? And they're like, no, it's Degrassi. And it like blew my mind. I've been saying it wrong all these years. All these years. Let's watch Degrassi.
Well, what did Stefan call Fat Apollo the other day?
Oh, we met yesterday, and he's like, hey, I'm Fat Apollo. And I was like, guys, I met Chubby Starbuck. and they're like, you mean Fat Apollo? And I'm like, right. Oh, shit. I apologize.
I'm glad I
sorry.
make such an impression on people.
You did.
Buddy in the sheets there, kind of crazy.
My apologies.
I think he's at the creepy room at the Liquor Dome. So that was my confession. But before we take some questions, you touched on something I found really interesting, is that Degrassi was a product of its time and it wasn't a product of its time. In that the issues it was addressing were very active issues at that time. And it was amazing that television hadn't had a young adult series that ever treated those issues with the sensitivity it did. So how did it feel to be involved with that?
We had fun doing them, for sure. There was a lot of learning that took place because we were kids too, right? I mean, we were all in high school at that time, going through these, reading these scripts and playing these roles that were risque and were sometimes difficult to even read about and think about and then have to actually play them. I mean, I know Stacey and dealt with that. I think one of our biggest ones that we talk about that I wasn't really that much a part of at the time was the AIDS episode. When we aired that, there was a lot to learn, and they actually brought gentlemen in with...
AIDS was just being discovered by the world, and people
didn't... It was brand new,
it was the gay
people
plague
were worried
still.
about toilet seats and things like this, which was so wrong. But we, as actors and as kids, had to learn about it and be educated about it on set to even understand and portray. So I think there was a lot of learning that took place for all of us in all the different episodes that we played, and yeah, I mean.
And you remember, this is pre-internet, so I mean, you couldn't just look it up on the internet. As silly as that sounds, that
We
it
couldn't
did
Google.
address. I think a lot of people learned a lot of stuff from that show.
Yeah, I think that it was the first show up until that point. It always had been a TV, television had been about a parent or an adult stepping in and sort of telling the kid the right thing to do. I just remember that being like different strokes, or Mr. Drummond would walk in and go, "Don't steal," And so like, and Degrassi, and a lot of teen television in so many different genres of teen television are about a character making mistakes. And I think Degrassi was the very first where they let a character go through a terrible experience because you don't go to your parents and say, I'm pregnant when I'm 13. And you lie about doing drugs, and you don't want to talk about the fact that you're going through something terrible, and you pay the consequences, and that's life. And I think we were the first show to show this, like, the scarier side of it. And I think that's what hopefully you guys and a lot of our audience saw for the first time when Degrassi came out. It wasn't pretty.
But
you
it was
know?
also too, and we didn't just like wrap everything up in a bow at the end. You know, a lot of like the after school specials would be like, everyone's like,
I don't smoke weed anymore. Life is good. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like Spike doesn't become unpregnant after that one episode. I mean, it doesn't go away. The issues keep continuing throughout the show, which I think was important. So yeah.
That's really quite something. So, okay. So why don't we throw it over to you, the loyal fans, and see if we've got any questions. So,
But no Degrassi questions, please.
no Degrassi. They only want to talk about their music. Right, so.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, hi. Hello.
Hi.
How
Hi.
are you? Good to see
Hello
you.
again.
Hello again.
I just had a question about follow up on what you were just talking about with the scripts and the fact that you were young yourselves when you were doing this. What was it like at home with your parents when they were seeing what you were being asked to portray to Canada and then worldwide when it went worldwide about these issues and wonder what conversation was like at the dining room table?
Can I answer a quick? You know when Joey walks through the calf naked?
Oh yeah. Fantastic episode.
So I had a meeting with the producer. It was just her and I, and she explained to me the storyline and why my character would go to such extremes to walk through the cafeteria naked. I really didn't like that idea. I didn't like the choice that they wanted to do, that they wanted me to do this. I was very insecure and shy and yada, yada, yada. I went home to my parents and I said, Mom, Dad, Linda, the producer, wants me to walk through the cafeteria naked. And my mom was like, awesome! And I'm like, so you're not going to help me here and say, no, our son's not going to do that. And you know, like, my parents were like, don't be a pussy, do it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And you know what, I think my parents at the time, they were always supportive. And they obviously knew that the show was going to take care of us and not exploit us and not take advantage of us. And they knew that they were offering me a challenge that, as a young, insecure guy, this was going to help step up my game and become a better actor and do things that were out of my comfort zone. And thankfully, I did agree to do it, and it was a very memorable moment on the show, which I look back fondly.
It's hysterical.
But at the time, it was a closed set. You know, it was you guys were all talked to prior from the producers saying, do not, you know, make fun of Pat, don't tease him, don't embarrass him. Meanwhile, the crew were like slapping my butt as I was walking by. And
I'm pretty sure the accounting department was there. It's like,
people who were never there on set showed up that day. So, yeah, we were a big family back then. So there was incredible trust, incredible friendships here that were formed, and I obviously trusted them. It was the crew that were very immature and childish.
I always recall our parents being so proud of us.
Yeah.
That they were proud of the show. Even, like, I just remember all our parents being just like, that was such a great episode, you know, to whoever, you know, that they were just, they were fans of the show as well. And I think they knew that it was a show of quality for what we were doing something different. And I don't remember ever hearing them go, oh, you're touching on subjects that you shouldn't touch on.
Yeah, or saying no.
Yeah, and I guess they knew that we were getting, like, they would research every subject and educate us as well. So I don't really remember having that many conversations with my parents, like in-depth conversations with them. Just, I knew that they were really supportive. There was a lot of trust between the producers and our parents, I believe.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hi.
Hi.
So we've already touched on that there's been a lot of intense issues and social issues that have been discussed on the show and even in the new generation episodes. I'm just wondering if there's any issues that you, even though being educated, felt uncomfortable with portraying, or if there was any that affected you emotionally afterwards.
I mean, we've always dealt with some heavy stuff. As the show has progressed, we've gone back to subjects And the way we tell those stories has changed. You know, Snake's brother was gay on the show. That's as far as I think is that anyone was willing to go as far as having a gay student in the school. And then you get to the next generation, and you have Marco, and he's coming out in school. And by the time you get to next class, which is the latest version, Tristan's out, and he's having a life, you know. And that's it. And we're telling more in-depth, more specific stories that are still, you know, very edgy in a lot of ways and very on the cusp. But the show grows with the times. As young people become, because of the internet, let's just say, they're aware of what the hell's going on in the world. And so we have to, as much as you can watch back, and they're really kitschy to watch some of the old Degrassi episodes, but they still kind of hit home. Yeah, I don't think there's been anything that, I think there's been a couple things over the years. Doing teen suicide is very tough. To try to tell a story without glamorizing is almost impossible. We've done it like, I think 3 times, and it's very hard to not be afraid that someone's going to go and want to try to tell a story and show someone's pain and make it relatable and not go, I want that attention, is very tough to do. So I think that's the hardest thing that we grapple with. I think we've touched on that maybe 3 times over the years, and it's always a major conversation between the cast and the writers and the producers about how you do it right.
And there's an incredible amount of research done to find out what is the ratio of people watching the show to copycats and things of that nature. Because God forbid, we feel like we did an episode about cutting years ago, and I know that a lot of kids were found cutting themselves after watching.
Yeah, that's one episode I think we were really. You want to tell the story because it's a real thing. We learned a lesson there, I think, about how to tell stories.
I think the writers and the producers fully realize and respect the responsibility that they have to you guys as an audience and the next young generation of viewers to tell those important stories, to tell them in a way that they can relate to, but never to glamorize anything. And I hope that for 99% of the time we've hit the mark, but you can't not have maybe 1 or 2 incidences.
Yeah, and you can't not tell that story. It's half your growing up is like not feeling like you belong. And so when you try to tell a story that honestly, it's just such a fine line of going why I feel this way and connecting with an audience, and at the same time going, there's answers. There are answers. You know, so.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I've always been curious about the origin of the words Narbo and Broomhead on your show.
So are we.
I have a theory that they were just used because they're not like attached to any kind of insult and no one could get.
You guys know?
I think it came from our director, to be honest. He
Narbo
would
stands
call our director, Kit Hood, would call us Narbos, like that. You know, where are the Narbos? Come on, Narbos, get in there, Narbo. Like, is that? I think actually came from him. Is that right?
You don't know the definition?
I think I
No.
remember.
It's no acting required by others.
Right.
So because we weren't really professional actors in our first few years of the show, we were learning as we were making the show how to play a character, how to perform. So he just said no acting required by others, and that was our nickname, was an Arbo. Now Broomhead, I guess maybe that's, back in England they would have these were just swear words that we could get away with on the CBC.
The disrespect that we put up with as kids.
So you don't even know how happy these guys were say the F-bomb back in the day.
Yeah.
We're legit.
Get some CBC cred. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm only just about to turn 18. And so I grew up, like all my life, I watched Degrassi, I watched Next Generation, Next Class, Junior High, all that stuff. And it really helped me in a lot of ways, like Miles actually helped me come to terms with my own bisexuality.
That's great.
And my question is, obviously, not for people that still play the principal, but
I can see it coming.
no, just would you ever like come back for to Degrassi for Next Class or something? Because it's like.
Would Miles come back?
Yes.
This
like not Miles, no, like Joey and like, would they ever come back? I like Joey. Geez.
There's always the discussion. We always discuss it. It's such a massive universe now, and everyone has their favorite. Like I always think when I talk to fans about it, everyone has their graduating class. You know, you're either your class of Jeremiah, or you're the class of Drake, or you're the class of Ellie, or you're the class of Eli and Claire, or you know, and everyone's like, when are you bringing back our favorites? And it's very difficult to do. And the conversation comes up all the time about bringing back like these guys or bringing back, you know, whoever. And it's such a massive list. It's kind of overwhelming. You know, with next class, we did have a sort of reunion thing of next gen kids coming back, and everyone's like, well, where's Ellie? You know, it's like it's so big. I would love to say that would be the case, and you never know. It's a very good possibility that it could happen.
It's never going to happen.
So that's basically what that means.
So it's never going to happen, and.
I know for old school fans, you know, maybe the next generation or the next class wasn't their show. But for us, this is part of the reason why we wanted to do this Cross Canada Comic-Con tour was to allow us, not closure, because I know you'll never get closure the way you want it to be, because I know a lot of people want to see Caitlin and Joey get together in the end. No. Life doesn't always wrap up in a nice bow, which is a great lesson. But you know, for us, we wanted the opportunity to say, "Hey, to you guys, you know, we made it. We made it through our teenage awkward years, and we're still here." And to thank you guys, and to just look in your eyes and let you know that. Just like you felt like we were there, we appreciated that you guys were there for us, because Degrassi wouldn't have lasted 3 decades with all these generations watching the show if you guys weren't so loyal and so in love with the characters and the storylines and the series as a whole. So, you know, this was our opportunity to thank you. And it's probably the closest that we'll ever get to a bit of a reunion.
And also, what's been really nice about doing these Comic-Cons is meeting a lot of people like you that are 18 years old and know who we are from the old show, and how people that watched Next Gen or Next Class and went back and discovered junior high, and that's very flattering to us. Also, that you want to see more of that universe, and that's such a sweet story for you to tell.
I went to my school at my library, and they ordered in from across Canada so I could watch junior high.
Wow.
That's so cool.
I ordered it in, and I was like, I'm gonna see this.
I want to see this.
On VHS tapes, did you watch it?
I still
Betamax? Was it Betamax?
A Selectavision Laserdisc.
But hey, would you guys be interested in an animated version of Degrassi High? Like if we were to come back as characters in an animated format? Because I would do that.
Yeah.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. You do that, Pat? Yeah, it'd be fun.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, there we
Thank
go.
you very much.
Thank you so much.
Sir?
So
Make
this
it
might be a bit of a deep cut, but one of my favorite Degrassi things was something that I would watch in health class in junior high, which were the Degrassi Talks documentaries. So I was just curious about how those kind of came about and what it was like doing those.
Good question. So after the show wrapped up, I guess it was the brainchild again of the producer and director. They decided, yeah, let's do a mini series, but we'll make it a documentary series. And they sent us across the country in different places interviewing on our own. So we suddenly, it was a change for us. It was a lot of fun because we got to start interviewing people out on the street or at schools. And we each kind of had our own subject, our own theme. I know for mine it was the sexuality one, largely I think because my sister at the time was coming out, or she had just come out. So that was an interesting one for us to be able to do together. And yeah, it was a fun departure from the show. It was a totally different vibe. And it was nice for us to be able to talk to like you guys, like other people, instead of having to act out the rules, we were getting input and feedback from real people out in the world. So it was actually really good experience. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, and a good concept.
That's interesting. Thank you. I forgot about those. I actually did. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make a comment about when I was a kid. I started with Kids in Degrassi series.
Nice job.
And junior high, and then Kids at Degrassi High with my daughter. I got her into it because it saved my life. I was extremely bullied because I was overweight, and I was picked on, chased home from school every day. And they did an episode about that, about girls being bullied because she was overweight. And it helped me to stay strong.
Thank you
That's
so
good
much.
to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you very much.
Those, listen, I will say this, Linda Schuyler, one of the creators she always talks about, those are the stories that make the whole reason, that's the only reason she does this show, is that she knows how important it is for so many people, and it's hearing those stories. I always report back to her and let her know what the things like when I hear things like that, so.
I remember when I was in high school in grade 9, when the show just started, I was small, I was skinny, and I used to get picked on at school, and people were making fun of me one day saying, oh, you work on a cheesy little CBC show. And my friend, who I kind of knew a little bit at the time, but he stood up for me, and he walked up to these people that were picking on me and said, what have you done? Shut up. The guy's having a good time, working on a TV show, doing what he loves. Leave him alone. And believe it or not, I remembered that incident, and I remembered that guy for over 30 years. And just recently, I hunted him down just to say thank you, because that stuck with me my entire life, that somebody actually took the time to stand up for me, this scrawny little guy who wouldn't stand up for himself. And I hope that in a small way that the show helped build your confidence, helped make you feel stronger, and know that you weren't alone. And I actually had the opportunity to see him again and thank him, and he came to my home and we hung out, and I just said, Andy, I just wanted to know if everything turned out okay for you. Like, is life good? Are you happy? And he deserved a good life, and I just wanted to share that story with him, to say that he left an impact in my life, and it was just a small gesture, but it meant so much. And I'm sure you guys all have small moments in your lives of gestures that others had done for you that stuck with you. And I hope that Degrassi stuck with you a little bit throughout your lives.
That's why these cons are so good, because you do share some wonderful stories with us, and we thank you, such as that one.
It's interesting, though, how, like, I remember being in my 20s and, like, you're walking down Queen Street in Toronto, and some guy across the street is drunk, who's like, Snake, you suck, You totally suck. And I've always had, you have your back up against the wall. And I remember, like, maybe about 2 years ago, this guy who's now, we've all gotten a little bit older. That same guy in my mind, who's now, like, he was coming up, and he was kind of drunk, and he was like in a suit, he was like a banker off Bay Street, and he comes up, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. And he comes over, he's like, you're from Degrassi, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, just want to let you know, your show saved my life. And I was like, what? And I'm like, 10 years ago, you would have told me, he's like, I probably would have told you suck. Yeah. But your show saved my life. I had a really bad upbringing. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, we all grow up, and like Degrassi's that thing where it's like, it is kind of like, we had no makeup, there was no budget on that show. You see every zit, but you look back and you reminisce and you go, God damn, that thing, that show it's just so raw in that way. It's kind of nice to go that we all kind of grew up with it and became, I hope, better people.
Well,
because of it.
I hope people realize that, like, we weren't actors when we started, and we were, we're like real people, and they got a lot of their ideas from us and stuff that we were going through as kids, because it wasn't easy for us growing up. We all had our own issues, and a lot of them were brought out to the table and exposed for everyone to see. So, which was good and bad, because it helped us get through some of our stuff. And we were able to share it, and if it helped other people, that's what makes us feel good. So it wasn't for nothing. So,
but thank you, though. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yes.
Hi, mine is a comment as well. I have epilepsy, and Stacey, when you portrayed that, I was around the same age as you were in the show, and it meant so much to me to have somebody being shown that had something like that, and like scared to tell her friends and all of that. I remember that episode like it was yesterday.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. I was so proud of that medic alert bracelet. I thought, because it was my own, it was Caitlin's own special thing, and it felt like a part of her, and I
wore it on Next Generation also, right?
She had to, because it doesn't just go away, right? I'm cured,
I'm unpregnant.
Right? But you know what? I had to remind them. I think I had to remind them, don't forget her medical alert bracelet, she still has it. But yeah, and that was an important rule for me to do. I wanted to make sure that I did my research and I portrayed it properly, because you want to be responsible. And so thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Fantastic, thank you. Yes.
Hi, mine's a comment and a question. I'm still in junior high, but our teacher shows us your guys' show still. And
Sorry.
And I have a question for you, Stacey. At the time when she was questioning her sexuality, was it hard for you because it was much more, I guess, homophobic time? Like
Or taboo.
Yeah. So did you get like, I don't know, not attacked, but like, was there a lot of people asking you about that, like outside of the show?
No, it's a very good question. It's strange because at my school, either a lot of people didn't really know that I was on the show or they didn't talk to me about it. I was a bit of an outcast, I guess, in my own like real school. But
And on the show.
I didn't know that till now. Thanks, Stefan. But I think I was a little trepidatious with that storyline at first, just for that very reason. It's kind of like this is a new subject, and I'm not gay, but I was also very proud to have that storyline, and this was before my own sister came out, so I didn't even know. It was I just was really appreciative to have such an important storyline to portray, and I like how they told the story as well, where it was left kind of ambiguous at the end, because it didn't matter whether the teacher was gay or not, and it's perfectly normal for people to be questioning their sexuality. So thank
Great
you
question.
for bringing
Thank
that
you.
one up.
Thank you. Yep.
I just wanted to say, to start off, like, obviously thank you for being here, and thank you for everything you've done through like the decades of Degrassi, because I grew up with the next generation, so you guys were like the teachers and the parents and that kind of stuff, and it's really cool to be here right now. But I was wondering, since you grew up like on Degrassi Junior High and you were kind of in the public eye and experiencing all those things kind of as you were filming them, then when you were working as the parental figures and the teacher figures in the next generation, were you kind of mentors for the new students that came in, or did you?
Oh my God!
Tell
Tell the Aubrey story. Tell the Aubrey story.
So Aubrey played Jimmy.
Who is Drake?
Oh yeah.
Right.
So one of the things that we wanted to do early on in the Next Generation season 1 is I wanted to get these kids excited about being on the show. They hadn't been born when the original show was done. And I'm like, guys, I really hope the show does well for you, because you're going to get to meet a lot of people, you're going to get to do a lot of publicity and press, and you're going to meet fans, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I just, I want you guys to experience what we experienced with the original series, and I want that same success for the Next Generation. And Aubrey just kind of looked at me, and he was like, yeah, whatever, old man.
Yeah,
like,
old man. Sure, old man, whatever.
Yeah, stop living the glory days, Pat. And I'm like, oh my God, I just got dissed by this punk. Like, whatever. And because I felt like I wanted to be a mentor to these kids. And, they were good actors and they were confident. And we weren't confident back in when we first started. But these kids they had agents and they had parents that were supporting their careers. And these were professional actors. And they didn't need to be babied. They knew what they were doing already. And I'll tell you one thing, Aubrey already knew back then that he wanted to be a hip hop star, like rapping, because he would listen to music all the time on set, and he was just focused on his craft, and acting was almost kind of like a stepping stone for him to build his confidence. But he always knew he was going to be Drake. And
Well, it's good he didn't amount to anything.
What?
After making fun of you.
No,
He's getting there. He's working on it.
He's working on it.
Working hard, is it?
Still needs
He
practice.
keeps wanting to join the Zit Remedy, and I'm like, forget it, dude.
Yeah.
Can I get Kirsty to tell you her story about how she got on Degrassi? Because it's a phenomenal story, and I love hearing her tell it. Because a lot of people don't know how Kirsty got on the show.
So this is how basic it is, really. I mean, I love the show too. So I was not on the early days. I guess it was season 3, I think, of junior high. So I watched it. I was home on Mondays. We talked about it. We watched it 4:30. And then there was an autograph session. And I live in Toronto. That's where we filmed it. And there was a big autograph session downtown at the ROM. So off I went with 2 friends, and we sat in the audience just like you and listened to the Q&A, and then afterwards there was signing autographs. So we went down, and the publicist had said, I guess she was standing down there with all the autographs, and I asked, how do you get on the show? And she said, well, have you ever done any acting? And I said, no. And she said, perfect. Because they didn't want anyone polished, And so she gave me her card, and she had said, next November, whatever it was, in a couple months, they would be casting for a new sort of rep company that year, a bunch more kids, and so get in contact. So then you send in your picture, and then you have to go in for an audition, and if they like you at that point, then you get called in, and we had to do, all of us went through this, where you worked with them for about 2 weeks, where they could then sort of see you in every element of your lifestyle, like making friends, talking, hanging out, acting. They could train you sort of the way I suppose they wanted us to be, which was quite natural, and that's how I got on. And the funniest story of it all was I remember nervous because I really had never done any acting. I think I played Molly in a school play, Annie. That was about it. And I remember going down to the washroom, and there was a girl who, her name was Emmy, and she said, "Oh, do you want to run our lines together right before sort of our final audition?" I said, "Oh, I'd love to." And so she read hers, and she was very polished. She was clearly an actress at the time. And I read mine, and she sort of went, "Oh, God, good luck." And and I remember walking up going, "Oh, no." Anyway, I got on, and she didn't, so. But, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. And that girl turned out to be Drake. Okay.
That's right.
Next.
As has been said by so many others, so much more eloquently than I could, a lot of what I saw on Degrassi continues to pop up in my life, just from time to time, and this is a reminder of this, almost parable-like. But I did have a question. As you mentioned, and it kind of follows on the last question before, a lot of the kids who were on the new Degrassi weren't even born when the old one sort of wrapped up. So at some point, somebody had a brainchild to do it. What was it like for you who found yourself on the new show to make the decision, I'm going to do this? Like, what was part of that process for you? And what was
Unemployment?
Yeah.
I think that, I remember them taking us out for dinner. I remember he was like, you, me, Pat, and Amanda, who played Spike, and there was about 4 or 5 of us or something, and they just sat down, I think, to discuss if we were even interested, and that there was interest, based on the idea that it just kept coming up at meetings, I think, and at CBC and CTV, where we ended up finally, the Next Gen aired, that Spike's baby was about to go into junior high. And no one could get over that fact, that it was like, this is crazy. And during this time, from the end of High to what was about to be Next Generation, the show had become more popular because it had been shown after school at 5 o'clock every day. And so there was this crazy appetite for a new show, and we kept on hearing about it. And it was growing, and it was growing, and it was kind of hard. You couldn't dismiss it. So they said, so look, there's real interest in this happening. We want to know what you feel, what the feeling is from you guys. And I think we would just we had so much fun the first time around. And that it just seemed like why we'd be crazy to pass on this. To be able to tell more stories along the same route of what we did so many years ago. And you're also, like Pat's saying, there's you kind of feel this responsibility that you'd want to make sure that it's being done right, and that we take it, we have an investment in it in our minds of what the legacy of Degrassi is. And I think that
I think it was a good bridge for them too.
Yeah, it made total sense.
It made connection, right?
Yeah, but there's a lot of care and we've been approached several times and being asked by certain parties to dumb down the show, to make it more sitcom-y, to make it just about at one point several years ago, it was from the American side, we were asked to maybe not have so many gay love stories. To not have, you can have gay characters, but just do they have to have relationships? That sort of thing. And it was like...
Oh yeah, they do, trust me.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where, and the line is no. We are not, we were always like, just cancel us. We can't not tell those stories. It's impossible, And we've had seasons where we tried to sort of, toe the line, but Degrassi has to be Degrassi, and it has to be uncomfortable. Or, so that we recognize ourselves in it, So I think for all of us, we've had our returning and being a part of the show is very important to us, the legacy of the show, and what?
Our time is over.
Yeah, speaking of... I'm sorry, folks. We've got the time over slip being shown to us, so I'm very sorry for the folks.
And we all hated our time on Degrassi, and we're out of here.
Yeah, that's right. Union scale. One more?
One more.
One more? One more? I'm sorry, you were.
So
Yeah,
We could do
sorry.
this for hours,
One more.
unfortunately.
Just what? I'm slave to the talent.
Hi again, guys.
Oh, hey.
I just have one question, and it's you guys established a lot of friendships and relationships on Degrassi Junior High and Degrassi High. What was it like to come back to Degrassi Next Generation and rekindle and reestablish those same friendships and same relationships?
It was like no time had passed. I hadn't seen this guy in 10 years. I hadn't seen Stacy in 10 years. I hadn't seen Kirsten in 25 years. And that's an example of how we have a bond, a connection. We did something very, very special in our teenage years.
It's family.
It's
weird.
family.
It's like,
Spent
you
a
know
lot of
what's
time
cool
together.
is what I was just saying to Kirsten too. It's like I feel like I know Kirsten better now than I did back in the day because I mean our characters barely interacted, especially in Schools Out. I
Or
mean,
Joey would have been caught.
Our characters did not cross paths. So yeah, it's nice hanging out more as adults.
I feel like it's family. It's so just like,
Yeah.
hey, Kirsty. You know, but like we rib each other all the time because it's like she's my sister, and it's like it's one of those things that time in between doesn't seem to. I saw Pat, and we were talking about. He's like, there's this interest in doing some Comic Cons and across the country, and then he pointed out that it had been 10 years since we'd seen each other, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like that makes no sense to me, and it was just because I felt like a day hadn't gone by. You know, I think it's just that connection we have. You know.
Thank you.
But it's also nice that the fans feel like no time has passed. They look
Every
at us.
time you come up and you tell us a story about how it touched you, it just at first you're like, I don't want to feel this, but it feels so good to know that like whether you thought it was goofy or it meant so much, and it was just it's a corner of your mind or it means everything. We appreciate that so much. It's really a beautiful thing when we get to meet you guys, and thank you so much for
I
having
feel
us.
like we
girls.
grew up
Fantastic.
together, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you guys brought us back together.
And next year we're gonna have werewolves and ghosts.
Yeah.
So we'll make more sense at the.
Zombie apocalypse at Degrassi High.
Yeah. That's the next one. So you know what? Thank you to Hal-Con for bringing these folks
Thank you
here.
so
This is
much.
amazing.
Thank you so much. And
They'll definitely be around downstairs.
thank you, Starbuck.
Chubby Starbuck.
Please come say hi to us. We're going to be signing downstairs, and we'd love to like meet and greet you in person.
We'll actually be doing a photo op right now, so if you're interested in having a memento or a token,
there you go.
We'll be doing professional photo ops for the next half hour.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
folks.
guys. Thank you so much.
Hal-Con.